Hi everybody, and a big welcome to Members Monday number 56. Now, whether you're one of our long-term Members Monday members, whether you've been with us for just a few weeks, or whether you're one of the non-members who's just sitting in today on this special session, a very big welcome, and let's get straight into this. Are you using loops in your Excel, in your Excel VBA? Loops are the most powerful concept in computer programming. I want you to think about one manual thing you're doing in Excel. We're all doing manual stuff in Excel. Maybe you're taking a load of sheets and copying them into separate files. Maybe you're copy pasting some rows of data onto a single sheet. Maybe you're saving 10 files to 10 different folders. We've all done those manual tasks in Excel, and we have all wondered, there must be a better way to do this. Now, loops are going to help you. They're the most powerful concept in computer programming and in Excel VBA. In this stream, we're going to look at some loop options in Excel VBA, because there's more than one option. We're going to focus on one of the options, and we're going to look at some simple examples for getting started with loops and getting you using loops in Excel VBA. You will not believe the amount of time that loops can save you. But firstly, if you're listening live, can you let me know if you can see me and you can hear me? I can see we've got 20 people watching. So big welcome to everybody. If you're watching a replay, skip through the next couple of minutes. I'm going to say hello to everybody. So welcome, JB. Haven't seen you in Members Monday before, JB. So big welcome. Bart is with us too. Welcome, Bart. How are you doing? Bart was our very first Members Monday member. Did you know that? Our foundational member. Speaking of long-term members, how are you, Jasmine? Jasmine lives over in California with her cat, Charlie, and with her human, Steve. Jasmine, how are you doing? Good to have you with us. Who else is with us today? It's going back through the chat. Peter is with us. Peter, how are you? I don't think you're one of our members. I think you're sitting in today. Good to have you with us down in Cheltenham. Peter is. Ian is with us. Big welcome to Ian, one of our members. Brian too. Welcome, Brian. How are you doing? Mark is with us. I don't think you're one of our members, so welcome, Mark. Hope you enjoy the session. Matthias is with us too. How are you doing, Matthias? Nikki is with us, one of our members. How are you doing, Nikki? Nikki is down in Bromsgrove. How was Christmas for you, Nikki? Vidal is with us. Welcome, Vidal. Vidal has just signed up for our football community. A big welcome to you. Gaz is with us. How are you doing, Gaz? Gaz says the sound, you can see me and hear me. Ian says the sound and vision are all good. Welcome to HD. Where are you watching from, HD? Can't discern much from your name, but good to have you with us. And Shlomo is with us too. Welcome, Shlomo. We've had a few emails, so really appreciate the feedback you've been giving me, Shlomo. Great to have you in a live session today. So before we get into the content, I just want to tell you a little bit more about Members Monday, because, well, I just love Members Monday. It's a totally unique Excel learning community. Let me ask you this question to get started. Why are you not better at Excel? There we go. It's a question I ask myself. I ask myself this, most days, why am I not better at Excel? But it's usually because there's one thing missing. All of the learning materials you could possibly want and more are already available on the internet. Have you ever thought about that? On the internet, not even YouTube, just generally with Google search, good old websites. You have all the materials you could possibly need. So what's missing? Why are you still struggling with stuff in Excel? Well, I think I know. And it's because you need a community. You need a community. And that's what Members Monday is. It's a learning community. I organize it. So I'm your guide. I'm your teacher. We've got a group of about 30 to 40 learners in here, most of whom have been with us for quite a few months. Quite a few have been with us right from the start, and people have made massive progress with us in Members Monday. What is it? Well, the main thing is a weekly live stream Monday at 5 o'clock. And you might be saying to me, but Chris, does that mean I have to catch up with all the previous live streams? Absolutely not. But we do save all the previous live streams for you in what we call our content library. Our content library, there's a lot of stuff in there, which is why we have the content navigator. Yes, so for all previous live streams we've had, and this is Members Monday 56, so there's 55 in there, we produce this little summary for you. And the summary tells you the title of the stream. You get this spiel section, gives you a little summary. You even get a little quote from me or one of the other members. You get this for each session. And crucially, over on the right here, you get a description of the main points from the session. And then these are actually hyperlinks. So you can click on any one of these. It's going to take you to that point in the session. So pretty much anything you'd want to learn in Excel, Excel VBA, we've covered in our 55 Members Monday sessions that we've had. And you can go through the summaries and find them here. But there's more than that. You know, you might say to me, Chris, I just want to learn about a particular topic. Is it difficult for me to do that in Members Monday? We've made it easy. Let's suppose you want to learn about loops, which is what we're learning about today. You can go to the generator sheet. This is in the Content Navigator file. You can hit generate. The file is going to generate a plan for you using Excel VBA. And these are the 14 most important points we've made about loops in Members Monday. You can see the session there. This is the 30th of March, 2020, the title of the session, then crucially, the hyperlink. So that takes you onto YouTube, not just to the session, but the specific point in the session where we're talking about the loop. How about that? So that's the Content Navigator. Summary of each session. We've got the training plan generator in here. This in itself is going to power forward your Excel learning. But there's even more in Members Monday, and maybe through the stream we'll talk about it. But the other really good thing, I think, is you get to hang out with other people just like you. People trying to get better at Excel, people trying to deal with problems, people frustrated, thinking there must be a better way. You've got 30 or 40 like-minded people, so you don't have to come to me every time. You can go to other people in the Members Monday community. We do have a special offer. We have a special offer today. Don't worry, guys. We're going to get into the content in just a second, but we've got the £100 special offer at the moment. And this is for a limited time. We're going to stop this at the end of the month. What is it today? It's that time of year when you never know what day it is, but it's the 28th today. So you've got £300, three days rather, £100 special offer. This means you get a whole year's membership for just £100. As I said, we're going to take away this offer in the next few days, but you can head over to the website. I've already put the link in the chat, and you can get involved with the Members Monday Learning community. If you want real results, you want to make real progress, you've got to have community. I would love for you to be a part of Members Monday. So let me know, guys, any questions about Members Monday, put them in the chat, me or the other members. We've got Bart in the chat. We've got Jasmine in the chat. We've got Nikki in the chat. These guys have been in Members Monday for a while. They'll be very happy to answer questions for you, I'm sure. With that said, let's get into our presentation. And for our members who were with us last week, there will be a degree of repetition from last week because we're going to go through loops from concept all the way through to kind of very simple implementation. From the concept, what are the options in Excel? And then let's go and do a few examples, talk about what the three options are in Excel, weigh them up, the pros and cons. So you can choose which one is best for you. That's where we're trying to get to today. But the loop concept, it sounds like a bit of an abstract computer programming term. A loop, what on earth does that mean? I must be a computer programmer to understand what that means. Well, here's news for you. I don't even consider myself a computer programmer. I'm actually an art student. Loops are happening all around us, yeah? Any piece of consumer electronics has some loops in its programming somewhere. And I want you to go and hang out with your washing machine. Yeah, I just said it. I want you to hang out with your washing machine for a few minutes this Christmas and just think about how it might all be working, because a washing machine has loops in its programming that makes it work. Now, when you program a washing machine, if it's anything like mine, got a few different cycles, got a short cycle, got a 15-minute cycle for when you're really in a rush. It's got the hot wash. It's got this wool cycle, all these different programs, because that's what they are. They're little computer programs, but they work through using this concept of a loop. When that washing machine is spinning its drum, how is the programming working to make that drum spin? So say in a cycle, the drum's got to spin 300 times, when your washing machine goes round and round. How is that communicated programmatically? Have you thought about that? Does it say 300 times in the program, spin, 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 spin 300 times? Is that how it works? Of course it's not, because it works through a loop. And in fact, the programming is going to be something like this. do until, spin equals 300, spin, and then loop. So 3 lines of code, and it's the same in all computer programming languages. Well, I'm not an expert, but in most of them, and it will be programmed the same in something like a washing machine. So what about that? Just 3 lines of code. How powerful is that? Yeah? Do something 300 times, 3 times, 30 times, 300 times, 3 million times if you wanted. There's profound implications in a practical sense. And I've done dozens of real world Excel VBA projects. This year, I've done hundreds through my career. When you get that wow moment from your customer's like, how did you do this? You know, I've been working this way for 5 years. I spend 4 hours on this every week. You've got it down to 1 minute or even 10 seconds. What's at the heart of that? Almost always, it's because we've implemented a loop. And a loop allows us to repeat a piece of code any number of times. It is so powerful. So let me know, guys, are you using loops in your programming? I've just got to switch my heater off here because now I'm talking about loops. It's getting a bit hot in here, you know. I'm getting all excited as I do. But let me know, are you using loops? Using loops. And then what type of loop do you use? I'm just going to put this question in the chat for you. Yeah, make sure you leave some comments, guys, because I can bring the comments up in the chat as I've done here. I can even bring people into the stream, and later on, I'll put the link into the stream. You can come into the stream. We can have a chat in person, you know, ask questions, actually talk in person. No, it sounds a bit intimidating, but people always get real value when they appear in the stream. And Ian is saying, yeah, usually use a loop until loop. And this is one of the 3 loops that we're going to look at. A do until loop, you know, is what I'd call that. And Bert is here, yes, with a for next loop. Bert, that is the loop type we're going to talk about today. A for next loop. HD is using for next. JB is here using loop until we reach a value or specified value in a cell. Very nice, JB. That's because do until gives us more options in terms of exit conditions. Yeah, do until gives us more flexibility. It's also the most dangerous, the highest risk loop, the most likely to give us an infinite loop, which we want to avoid. Steve, how are you doing? How was Christmas? Steve is up in Lincoln, a fellow Midlander. Steve is using loops often, using for each, do until, and do while. And Shlomo too is saying for next and loop until. So good to see some people using loops in their practice. So let's try to make sense of this. People talking about lots of different ideas. Good to see people using loops, but let's try to make sense of it because it's always a bit intimidating, isn't it? And I know we've got people here who are not with us every week in Members Monday. Let's simplify this, you know, and if you watch my YouTube stuff, you know my approach. I start with real world application. What do we need in the real world to get this done? I don't learn stuff for the sake of learning stuff. I don't learn code for the sake of learning stuff. I learn code to get jobs done. That's because it pays my mortgage. Yeah. So 3 loop types. You don't even need all these. I'd say it's helpful to know all of these, but you don't need to use all of these. Yeah, but it's helpful conceptually to know them. I'd say for the first 5 years of my career doing Excel VBA consultancy, I only used a for next loop. Yeah. You don't need to know them all. You may only need to know one, but for interest and to find the best one for you, this is going to be beneficial. Let's talk briefly about each one. A for each loop. Firstly, a for each loop. Let's get briefly into Excel syntax and how the infrastructure of Excel works, how the language works. Excel consists of objects organized into collections. Those objects have properties. So just 3 words. I want you to write them down. Come on. Let's get serious here. You can see how many notes I've been making today. Had a meeting with Bart earlier. Have to furiously take notes in my meetings with Bart. So he gives me lots to do. But anyway, 3 things here: objects, collections, and properties. Okay. So Excel consists of objects that are organized into collections. Did you know that? What are some examples of objects in Excel? anything you can see really in Excel is an object. The file itself is an object, the workbook. A sheet in the file is an object. A cell on a sheet is an object. A button on a sheet is an object. A shape on a sheet is a shape. A shape on a sheep. Don't want to bring sheep into this. A shape on a sheet is an object. A chart is an object. The VBA editor itself is an object too, I think, although that's not going to be useful to us. So these objects are organized into collections. So there's a worksheets collection, the worksheets in the file. There's an open workbooks collection, the workbooks that are open. Selected cells is also a collection, yeah? So what I'm saying is Excel has a kind of pre-existing understanding of collections, yeah? So rather than getting complicated using for, next, or do until, you can say to Excel, do something to each object in a collection. We've got it on the next slide here. Do something to each object in a collection. We'll look at some examples in just a second of what we mean. But for example, you could say to Excel, I want to delete all of the sheets in the file. And you could do that using the sheets collection. So say to Excel, find the sheets collection for each sheet in the sheets collection, delete it, and maybe save one of those sheets. So this is how for each is useful. I love for each. It's the one I use most these days, actually, because it uses Excel's pre-existing infrastructure, harnesses what's already there, and that gives it a power and simplicity that I just love. So I'm using for each most these days. For next sounds similar, but slightly different. And for next doesn't use a particular collection. For next actually uses a number. It uses an integer variable. And the way we set up the loop is to say to Excel, go through this loop a number of times. So rather than saying, do this loop once for each object in the collection, you're saying to Excel, do this a certain number of times. So that gives us some possibilities. We'll talk about it in a second. So a little bit more difficult, gives us a little more power, a little more flexibility, a little more risk as well, because we've got to be precise and accurate in terms of how we set up this loop, in terms of how we control the range of numbers that we're going to work through. We're going to focus on for next in this stream. So what about do until? Well, do until is the most challenging. It gives us the most options, but also comes with the highest risk. And let me know in the chat, have you ever got yourself into an interminable loop? I'm talking about Excel in here. It's Excel here, not in life generally, where Excel is just whirring away. It never seems to stop. It's going round and round a loop. If you're using do until, certainly for the first time, you're probably going to get yourself into one of those loops, because with do until, there's no built-in control for the loop. So with for each, for example, we're saying for each object in the collection. When Excel gets to the end of the collection, Excel stops. Yeah. So there's a pre-built-in, there's a built-in loop control there. With do until, Excel will do it forever unless you're very clear about when to stop. But if you can do that, you can be clear with that syntax, control the loop properly. Do until gives us intriguing possibilities, much more flexibility in terms of exit conditions. You could say to Excel, do this until a value in a cell equals a certain value. How about that? So that's certainly much more flexible and powerful than just saying to Excel for each object in a collection. So here's the three main types. Hopefully that gives you a sense of what each one is useful for and which one might be most useful to you. And later in the session, we're going to revisit each type, certainly the first two, and do a bit of a critical evaluation. Don't want to get all academic on you, but a critical evaluation, looking at the pros and cons of each, which one is best for your situation. Now, members know that last week we focused on for each. We'll briefly look at some examples this week, but we've got a whole lecture last week on for each loops. We look at 3 applications. I list about 7 or 8 applications. We'll have a brief look again in a second. But if you want a whole session, guys, get involved in Members Monday. Let me just remind you, we have our £100 special offer. £100 special offer. That's a whole year's membership to Members Monday. You just head over to the website, memberships, and then Members Monday. You can invest £100 in me, £100 in yourself. it's going to be your best Excel VBA learning experience. It is unparalleled. This is not happening elsewhere on the internet. And Bart, if you're listening, if you could just put the link in the chat, if that's possible, but you can just head to the website memberships, and maybe I'll be able to put the link in the chat myself later. Okay, so briefly talked about a for each loop. And today we're actually going to talk about for next loops rather. So for next loop, we're going to look at an example just in a second. I hope you've got Excel open because we're going to actually build a loop ourselves. Use an integer variable to control how many times to go through a loop. So I want you to think, what additional possibilities and indeed challenges might this present as compared to a for each loop where we're looping through each object in a collection? How might it be better than for each? So what are we trying to foster here? We're trying to foster some critical thinking on your part. So you're not just rocking up thinking there's only one way to do this in Excel. You've got a bit of a toolbox. You've got multiple possible approaches. You can select the best one for the task, and the high-level students even justify that to yourself or to your customer who might be interested in how it's all working. With that said, let's close the content navigator. No, we'll keep it open actually. Let's get into our download file. So in the video description below, you can see a link to Dropbox. You can head over there and download this file and make sure you're working along with me. Every week in Members Monday, we have a download file. It's not just going to be me talking, but there will be some of that. But most of it is practical. Excel is a skill. You really have to be practicing it yourself in order to make progress. So last week we did for each, and here's some more examples. I mentioned a few of where a for each loop might be useful. It allows you to loop through sheets in a file. You might want to delete all the sheets, loop through shapes on a sheet, delete all the shapes, loop through open files. How about that? That's a useful one. For my customers, if I'm going to launch a very involved macro, a sophisticated macro that does lots of work, I have a message box that pops up saying, make sure other files are closed. Yeah. So we can actually count the number of open Excel files and put a little warning up saying, don't run this macro until the other files are closed, because if other Excel files are open, that does slow down macro execution. We can loop through cells in a range using for each, loop through buttons on a sheet, loop through files in a directory, files in a folder, all good stuff using for each. Now, in the demo file that you can download, let me know in the chat, have you downloaded the file? Yeah, Bart says, I hope you can see the link. Yeah, Bart, I don't think you're going to be able to put a link in the chat, I'm afraid. But we'll sort that out. Maybe we'll sort that out later, Bart. We'll get the link in the chat to Members Monday. So make sure you're in the right file first. So I'm in the download file. Yeah, and just go ahead and try a few of these macros. This macro is a for each macro that's going to loop through the sheets collection and tell us the name of each sheet. Pretty cool. Let's give it a go. I'm going to play the macro here, and I can see we're flashed up for each. That's because for each is the name of the first sheet. Message box, again, the second sheet is called comparison. Now, remember when I started talking about syntax and language in Excel VBA, what were the three things I mentioned? Can you remember? You've taken notes. So you're like, yeah, just go to my notes. No, nobody's really taken notes, have they? But we mentioned objects, collections, and then properties. Properties. All objects have properties. And indeed, when you select an object in the VBA editor, as I've just selected a sheet, you can see the properties listed in the properties window down here. So what's a property? It's something about the object that we might want to manipulate. So a sheet, for example, has a name. You might want to change the name. A cell has lots of properties we might want to work with. A cell has a value. That's the one we most commonly work with. That's what's in the cell. Cell has formatting properties. A cell has a position property. So Excel knows where it is, broadly speaking, on the sheet. All kinds of properties we might want to manipulate. In this particular routine, chrissheet.name. So we're getting the name property from the sheet. How are we doing that? You can go back to last week's Members Monday session, Members Monday 55. But we have to declare a variable, an object variable, that allows us to loop through the objects in the collection. As I said, you can go back to last week's session to learn more about this. How about looping through cells in the selection? I'm going to go ahead here, select 5 cells, and then run this macro here. So we've got the cells collection. We want to do something to each of the objects in that collection, each of the cells. In this case, we're going to flash up another cell property, which is the address of the cell, A1, B2, C3. Let's go ahead, F5, run the code. So it's saying the first cell, the address is E6. Second cell is E7, third cell is E8, E9, E10. How cool is that? I love this stuff. And you could go ahead and select 100 cells and hit the message box 100 times. Maybe I don't recommend that, but it gives you a feel for the power of this. We've also got open files here. And here I've got an example of the code that I run to ensure that multiple Excel files are not open. That's useful if you want to run an intensive macro, because having multiple files open will slow down the macro. Just going to run this quickly. F5 key. We've got a message box there saying more than one workbook open. So just a bit of a refresher on for each. You can see 3 examples there. You might be saying to me, but Chris, that's not useful. It's not useful just telling me the address of the cells. I agree. Yeah, but these are small scale examples and you can build them up. Yeah. You could very easily delete all the sheets. You could list the names of all the sheets. You could put values into each of these cells. You could extract the values from each of these cells. All kinds of stuff, but it comes down to these basic skills. That's what we do on Members Monday. We practice. It's like going to the Excel gym. I always say, you come into the Excel gym, we work on your skills. I've been working on these skills for 10 years. There's no magic dust. There's no other stuff I use on projects. This is the stuff I use on projects. Loops, conditional statements, position control. We're drilling it every week right here in Members Monday, improving your skills and the impact of your work. Good. So that's the for each loop. So our second loop is, I'm going to go ahead and rename this module. Let's go for each loop here. I'm going to insert a module here. And the second looping technique we're going to look at is for next. Okay, so what do we do when we open a new module? Option explicit here at the top of the module. Even better if you can spell it correctly. Option explicit just helps us when we're working with variables. Very simply put, it helps us spot spelling mistakes in variables. If you don't have option explicit on, then Excel won't spot those spelling mistakes. That's costed me hours. That's costed me hours before. So I really recommend using option explicit. So let's go for simple sub, of course, first. Simple for next loop. Here we go. And no excuses, guys. Make sure you downloaded the file, you're working along with me, or you can just go ahead, open a new Excel file, open the Visual Basic Editor and work along with me here. Now you'll see in this file, I've started to put together a little comparison. We're going to complete this over the next couple of weeks, and this is our critical evaluation. Yeah, that's what an academic would call it, weighing up the pros and cons of each approach. But we could just call it your kind of easy guide to loops in Excel VBA. But I want you to be aware of what the blueprint is. I call it the blueprint. So this is the repeated language that is used every time in this loop example. So whether you're with the for each loop, whether you're looping through sheets in a file, cells in a range, open workbooks, the structure of the syntax is the same. And we can prove that by going back to the for each module. Just study the syntax. You know, code is language, VBA is language. Yeah. And I'm actually a linguist by profession, believe it or not. I used to be a Japanese to English translator. Can you believe that? I'm a linguist by profession. Language is all about spotting patterns. And you might say, Chris, I'm not a linguist. Okay, fine. But you can, I'm pretty sure you can speak. Yeah, at least to some level. I speak kind of Midlands English, you know, whatever it might be. That means intuitively, you're good at spotting patterns. Yeah. So just have a look at these two, this routine and this routine, spot the pattern. How about it? Well, both of them, we declare a variable on an object variable. Bang, there it is in the blueprint. And then we say for each object in a collection. So for each, then we use the name of the object variable. Last week, we spoke about how that's a little bit awkward. It's just something we have to get used for. Then we do our code. In this case, we're just flashing up the name of the sheet, and then we have next object here. So this is our blueprint. Whenever we're using for each, this is what we start with. And this is it, guys. When you're writing code, well, you never load on Members Monday anyway, but you never have a blank piece of paper, really. In Members Monday, we're giving you lots of examples to work with anyway, and we're giving you, more importantly, these building blocks, these repeated structures that you're going to use time and again in your Excel VBA practice. So I'm going to talk more about the blueprint in just a second. But before I do, any questions about Members Monday? You know, I know we've got a few people here who are not members. And first, thanks very much for being with us, guys. Really appreciate you watching along. But let me know, why you're not a member. Is it too expensive, £100 a year? Is it not targeted enough? Are you worried it's not going to do what you want to do? Are you like, I've just had enough of Chris going on about objects and variables and stuff? Fair enough. Let me know, guys, why you're not a member. But you can go to the link now. Follow the link I've just put in the chat. Take advantage of our £100 offer. It's only going to be on for 3 days, guys. I think I'm going to close the membership then, at least for a couple of months. We're going to focus on the members we have. We can do this every week. Consistency is key, guys. I've seen people, all they do is turn up every week. Yeah, they turn up every week. They do the tasks. You'll be amazed how much progress you can make if you're consistent and you're with us week to week on Members Monday. So go ahead, check out that link, and you can pick up your £100 deal. Let's get this done. So we're talking about blueprints and the for each blueprint. So as a way to access for next, let's look at the blueprint. What about it? What do you think about the patterns? Are you recognizing anything here? If you have to compare these two, you know, what are the patterns? Well, some initial observations. And, you know, my nephew, who's, no, actually, he's like 6 weeks old, so he probably couldn't. But my point is, somebody very young, a child, you know, if you showed this to them, they'll be able to recognize the patterns. That's because VBA is actually an intuitive thing. It's a language. It's inside you, really. Yeah. So we can see the blueprint is pretty much the same. We've got 3 lines, basically. Yeah, 3 lines of code. But there are some critical differences. Rather than declaring an object variable, when we do for next, we declare an integer variable. Let me know in the chat. What is an integer variable? Perhaps going back to your kind of GCSE maths or something, I'm not sure. But an integer variable is just a whole number variable. And an integer variable works up to, I think it's about 32,000. Maybe somebody can let me know in the chat. It works up to about 32,000. And after that, you need a long variable. But for 99% of the tasks you'll ever do using a for next loop, an integer variable is going to do the job. You know, you're going to have a really, really big data set if it's going to be more than 32,000 rows. So we declare an integer variable. That's as opposed to using an object variable. And then we have to say to Excel, with this number, I'm going to give you a lower bound, a starting point, and I'm going to give you an endpoint, X and Y. Translate that into English, it's the number of times we're going to go through the loop. And then to close the loop, quite literally, we have to say next and then the variable name. So this is the idea. This is the first time I've taught this in this way by teaching the structure before actually doing it in Excel VBA. So let me know. Let's go to our for next module. Let me know if it's helpful for you rather. So I'm just looking at my blueprint now. Yeah. And obviously I've done this thousands of times. So the blueprint is kind of imprinted on my mind, but I'm not asking you to do it to remember anything. I'm not asking you to do it from a blank sheet of paper. Do it from the building blocks that we give you on Members Monday. Counter as integer. Okay, declare integer variable. Now, why did I call it counter? You can call it anything you like. That's the truth. Yeah. But there's good practice and less good practice. And there's lots of people out there on the internet You know, I'm not hating on other people who do an Excel VBA who would say dim X as integer, dim A as integer, even dim I as integer. Yeah. You'll see lots of that going on the internet. And I even know some of our members do that occasionally. I recommend using a longer word for the variable name. Use a descriptive word, an informative word that tells you what the variable does. Yeah. You can call it anything you like, but call it something descriptive. I recommend counter because what's this variable doing? It's counting. So the name of the variable describes its role. Maybe when you've got one variable in the file, it's, you know, not too difficult, but you might have 5, 10 variables, you know, in one routine, I might have up to 20 variables. Then you really want to know from looking at the variable, what the variable actually does. So what's next? Back to our blueprint. So for counter equals 1 to 10. And then what should we do now? Shall we write the code? Well, no, actually, I'm going to complete the blueprint. So when you open the loop, close it straight away. Yeah, close the loop straight away before you put any code in. That's going to minimize the likelihood of disasters, of us getting into those interminable loops. And I'm going to complete the comments, the annotations, open the loop, and then close the loop here. Are you using annotations in your coding, by the way? So when I put an inverted comma and I write something in the VBA editor, try it yourself, you're going to see that the VBA editor displays it in green and it becomes a comment or an annotation. And why can't I speak anymore? It becomes a comment or an annotation, and Excel is going to actually ignore that in code execution. That's great for us because we can make useful notes in the VBA editor that tells us what is actually going on. So great comments here from our current members, by the way. I haven't paid them to say this, believe this or not. Yeah, we've got the Facebook group as well on Members Monday. Haven't even mentioned the Facebook group, but yeah, but this is a member forum. You can go ahead, put your questions on there, get help from me, get help from other members, but you don't need a question. You can just go there, hang out, see what everybody else is doing. It's a great little community over there. And Nikki, another one of our great members, says it's a great space to learn and get help with your code and projects. Yeah, if you've got an Excel project or just lots of data, you're like, I'm just not sure what to do with this. You know, Members Monday is a great place to be. Get advice from me, get advice from the other members, and practical advice. You know, we can actually work on it in a Members Monday session. Good. And Ian Reeve, yeah, a good shout here about Fornex. Yeah, we're going to mention STEP. We are going to mention STEP in a second. And if I don't, Ian, make sure I remember to do that. And just to remind you guys, our £100 special offer is on for the next 3 days here in Members Monday. Head over to the website. The link is in the chat. About 10 or 20 comments above, I put it in there. You can go ahead and take advantage of this offer. It's only for 3 days, guys. We'd love to have you in Members Monday. So we've managed to execute the blueprint to transfer it into the VBA editor. Let's go ahead and prove that this is actually working. And this is a testing technique I use all the time in Excel VBA to prove what's going on in the code. Message box and then variable name. So this is another little blueprint really I use all the time. Message box and then the name of the variable. You don't need to use speech marks because variables, they don't come with speech marks. Yeah. Message box counter. Let's see what happens. I'm going to step through this code. You can go to debug and step into. You can use the F8 key. I'm going to use the F8 key here. Now what's going to happen? When I execute this line of code, message box, we know means the message box is going to flash up. What's going to be in the message box? Hit the F8 key. Let's find out. We've got 1 in the message box. Okay. Why is that? Well, we know from the blueprint, we say for variable equals x to y, for counter equals 1 to 10. So this is the first time we're going through the loop. Counter has a value of 1. This is the beauty of for next. You know, there's this inbuilt increment in for next, inbuilt increment that we don't have if we use do until. And that's one reason do until can be risky. We're going to cover do until next week or the week after on Members Monday, Members Monday 57, 58, by the way. So we've got this inbuilt mechanism that's going to increment up the value of the variable by 1. So I'm going to go back through the loop now. In fact, where's the yellow line going to go now? Yeah, this is the loop in action. So this is happening in your washing machine, whatever consumer electronics you're using. Hit the F8 key. We go back to the top of the loop, and we're going back through the loop again. Message box counter. So this is the critical question, really. If you're understanding this well, you should be pretty comfortable answering this question. But don't worry. If you're not, you're in the right place. You're in a safe learning environment here. That's what Members Monday is all about. What value is going to flash up when we execute this line of code? When I hit the F8 key, we can see 2 is flashing up there. That's because in ForNext, we have this inbuilt mechanism that increments the value of the variable up by 1 until we get to 10. So hitting F8 again, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let me ask you this question. Where is the code going to go now? We've gone from 1 to 10. Where does the code go next? Does it go back to the top of the loop? The code is going to leave the routine. Did you see that? We went through the code 10 times, the number of times we specified at the top of the code. And after that, the exit condition was satisfied because counter equaled 10. That means we exited the loop. This is why ForNext is good. You know, it's very practical. It has this inbuilt mechanism to count through it. And it's quite safe. You know, it's quite difficult to crash a ForNext loop, although I'm sure I've done it many times in my career. Now, we had a great suggestion earlier from Ian, one of our members too. Are you going to mention step, which is 1 by default? So what about this step idea? It's a very nice feature of ForNext. You know, while I'm delivering this session, I'm actually thinking I'm falling in love with ForNext again. You know, when you look through photos of your ex, sometimes, okay, maybe you guys don't. Maybe that's just me, but I'm reminding myself of the good times I had with ForNext. Like the way that the way the variable works like that is just really helpful. And then we've got step as well. Okay, so what does step do? So step is another inbuilt feature. It allows us to control the increment with which we work through the loop, the increment with which we work through the loop. Now, if we don't say anything, which is how we set it up, by default, step is going to be set to 1. And that means Excel goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If we have step in here, we have options. So we can say step 2. What's going to happen now? And is this an endless loop? I'm not absolutely sure. We're going to see what's going to happen. So counter equals 1. Now, because we're on step 2, counter is going to equal 3. Counter equals 5. Counter equals 7. Counter equals 9. And then we exit the loop because the variable is more than the exit condition that we specified at the top of the loop there. You can experiment with different numbers. Step 3, using the F5 key. Yeah, I just hit the F5 key actually, which is going to give me 1, 4, 7, and then 10, and then we exit the loop. So step is pretty cool as well. Gives us options. Yeah, so we've got this inbuilt mechanism. We can work through it. We've got some flexibility for tweaking it using step. How about that? But you're saying to me, Chris, I'm loving all this theoretical discussion. Yeah, you're making notes. You know, I know you're loving it, but what's the practical application of all this? What's the practical application? Now, the truth is, ForNext needs a little bit of help to make it practical, unlike ForEach, which is working with objects in Excel, working with objects in collections. It's a very practical loop. ForNext needs a bit of help. It's very good for doing little demonstrations that I did, little academic demonstrations, if you like. But to get it doing stuff, it needs a little help from its friend. Yeah. And ForNext's great friend is, here we go. One of my great friends as well is the offset method. What? The offset method. Now Excel VBA is about position control. How many times have I said this on Members Monday? Excel gives us a grid, gives us a spreadsheet to work with. How successful we are with coding depends to a great extent on how well can we control where we are on this grid. That's a skill in itself. That's called position control. There's a few techniques in Excel VBA that really help us with position control. Dot cells is one of them. Got a video on my YouTube channel about the dot cells technique. Offset though, offset for me is the OG, and it's the one you really need to know. And I love offset. And this is why I recommend learning the offset formula. The main reason is because it helps you understand the concept of offset. So I'm just going to create a sheet here, and we're going to draw a line of numbers here. Okay. So task here, create a list of numbers from 1 to 10. And then maybe we'll play with it a little bit. Then we'll do our reflection and we'll wrap things up here. I'm going to put a link in the chat, guys. If you want to drop into the stream, ask me a couple of questions. So it's just like a Zoom call. Obviously, everyone else is going to be watching. But I've just dropped a link into the stream. I'd love for you to drop into the chat. Yeah, if you're like, I'm not sure about Members Monday, can I ask you some questions? Drop into the stream, guys. You know, you can send me an email if you want, but you can drop into the stream, ask me some questions. So you just follow that link. I can see you backstage. You come to this backstage area, close the YouTube feed, just watch in the backstage area, and I'll be able to add you into the stream later. Shlomo said, I want to join. The link told me to guide and video. Okay. So Shlomo, because you're already on the mailing list, you have to go to your membership dashboard, and then I think it's in billing. Yeah. So you go to your, I think it's billing on your account. So it's your account settings. I know I'm not explaining this very well, very sorry. Your account settings and then billing. In billing, you can change your membership. So change it to Members Monday and then go to annual. You'll have the £100 annual option there. Yeah, I think most people are already on the mailing list. So you have to go to billing and you can change your membership plan there. You'll put your card details in. You'll be able to get involved. Yeah, and Jasmine says it's on the top right of the screen. Yeah, Shlomo, if you're struggling, shoot me an email and we'll be able to set it up. Create a list of numbers from 1 to 10. So I'm going to remove step for now because I just want to increment up by 1. So let's start from B5 and let's see the for next loop working with its great friend offset. Offset means move away from. We're going to move away from whatever cell we put here, this number of rows, and then this number of columns. Let's just try this now. So what cell is 1 going to appear in? We're going to put 1 in a cell on the spreadsheet here. What cell is it going to appear in? You can stop the stream if you're watching on replay. Think about that. Where is the 1 going to appear on the spreadsheet? We're going to start at B5, move away by one row down, and then 1 column across. So it's going to appear in C6. There we go. And we can see 1 appearing there in C6. You can do that. You can use static values with offset, but offset gets really exciting when you use a variable with it. So we've got this counter variable. We can combine it with offset. Now what's going to happen? That's my next question for you. If you're watching on replay, stop the stream. Now what's going to happen here? Hit the F5 key. Whoa, we've got a list of numbers. Why is that? Well, we know every time we go through the loop, the value of counter is increasing by 1. And equals 2. I'm just hovering the cursor over the variable, by the way. That allows you to see the value of the variable. So we're moving away from B5 by, now it's 4. That takes us B5, that takes us to B9 or B10. Now it's 5, now it's 6, now it's 7. That's having the effect of writing a list, going from 1 row to the next. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. So we can now complete this. How would we complete this to get a list of numbers? We just need to change one thing about this line of code. What about this? Hitting play, what's going to happen? We can see that. For next loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pretty cool. What if we wanted to put those numbers in a row rather than in a column? Stop the video if you're watching on replay. Think about that yourself. If we switch round the two elements, the two components of the offset method, what's going to happen now? Let's see. Hit the F5 key. Our list of numbers now goes, fits in the row there. That's because the variable's working with the second component of offset, which controls how many columns we move across. Pretty cool. Now I want you to go ahead and try a few different, just play with this live code. This line of code is magic. Really, there's so much good stuff going on in here. Play with some different cell values, what happens? Play with some different values in offset, what happens? Play with different loop controls, what happens? Change these values at the top of the loop. Play is so important. Yeah, play is so important in code and Excel VBA. You've got to find that kind of childlike enthusiasm in you, and you'll find it. You'll be surprised how quickly it comes, that allowed you to do things like ride a bike when you were a kid, like when you played sport when you were a kid, or you played a musical instrument, or you played computer games. Yeah, you got good at computer games, right? I got way too good at computer games when I was young. You can find that, and that's going to make you want to practice, and that's going to, allow you to make progress with stuff like this and really improve your coding skills. Good. So our simple for next loop there, and you can build on that example. So let's go back to our comparison, just kind of try to summarize what we've learned. So for next loop, we looked at a few examples, and a for next loop helps us work with objects in Excel, collections of objects, and then usually to change a property, some kind of property. I've got some pros here, and we'll kind of complete this as we go along. Examples, it allows us to list all sheet names in a file, count the number of open workbooks. It works great if you're working with objects. So if you want to do something to all the sheets, all the charts on a sheet, you want to do something to all open files, you want to work directly with an object, for each is probably the best choice. Risk level, I've said medium. I might even say low, for for next. Yeah, I'm not sure about this, but for next, with all those built-in controls that I covered, I think the risk is quite low. Specific benefits of for next, it allows greater flexibility because of the integer variable that we were just working with, counter as integer, using the variable in the code, working with offset, allows greater flexibility, allows you to do more sophisticated things, and special features such as step. And of course, we looked at how to use step in this demonstration just about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Combines perfectly with offset for positioning a for next loop. And yeah, I've done a huge amount of things using for next. Whenever I want to do something to every row of data, every cell in a column, I usually go to for next. Yeah, when I want to do something specifically to an object, I mentioned all the sheets in the file, all of the open workbooks, that's for each. When I want to do something to each cell in a column, which you often want to do when you're working with a data set in Excel, I'd usually go for next when I do that, although you could do it with for each, and I've done it with for each. I'd usually go for next. And next week, Members Monday 57, are you going to be with us? I hope you will be with us. We're going to cover the do until loop. Do until loop comes with a health warning. It is high risk, but it gives us all kinds of flexibility to build more complex routines around loops. Fantastic stuff. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Any final questions? Any final questions? I will just drop the link in the chat one more time here. I'll wait for any more questions to come in. If you've got any questions about loops, if you've got any questions about Members Monday, if you want to hop into the chat and have a quick chat, literally, if you want to hop into the stream and have a quick chat with me, the link is there as well. But I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat here. That's a link to our Members Monday learning community, and we have our £100 offer. Go and do it now, guys. Yeah, let's get it done. Guess you signed up for 12 months. That's 52 sessions. 52 sessions. Can you believe it? And you are going to make massive progress in that time with your coding. So we've got some questions coming in. Bart says, what is it? We use a name and not 10, and the name gets another number. So Bart, I think you're talking about the for next loop. Let's open the VBA editor here. What if we use a name and not 10, and the name gets another number if we don't use 10? Yes. Yeah, you could use a variable here, of course. Yeah, and let's just let's say loop limit as variable. Again, this is a variable to control loop exit. And then we could say loop limit equals 10. And this would mean that we're using a variable to control how we exit the loop here. And again, this example doesn't look particularly exciting, does it? But you might want to vary the amount of times you go through the loop, you know, for any number of reasons. You might want to do that. So you could control that with a variable. Let's go ahead and run the code. Just to demonstrate, we get the same, as variable. Sorry, this should be integer. There we go, F5, and you can see we've got the same result there. Yeah, so you could control this with variables. The loop start could be a variable as well. Okay, so any number of options here. Okay, Rodney says, yeah, try to join. When I did it, replaced my other memberships. Oh, with this one, when I updated. Rodney, that is not good. That is not good. I think you can only have one membership per email address, Rodney. I think this is a problem. You can only have one membership per email address. So, Rodney, sorry about that. Shoot me an email. We'll get it sorted. Even if we need to have a Zoom call, we'll get it sorted. I think you might need to have 2 accounts there, Rodney. So hopefully you've got another email address. One email address for one membership, one email address for the other membership. Sorry about that. That's not something I didn't set it up that way. That's just the way the backend infrastructure works. So apologies for that, Rodney. Shoot me an email. We'll get it sorted out. Ian, Jasford, I'll deal with your question in a second. Code examples on the web often use on error resume next. Is that necessary? This is a great question. Should you use on error resume next? Now, VBA errors happen all the time. You just saw I called this variable, which is not a variable type, so I got a VBA error. VBA crashed. If you use on error resume next, certain types of errors will be ignored. Yeah. Now, initially, you might think, oh, that's great. You know, I won't get error messages, but I never use on error resume next. I've never, ever used it, not once. Why not? Because I want to know what the errors are and I want to solve them. Yeah. If you use on error resume next for a prolonged period of time, you're going to be kind of putting sticking plasters on your coding, is how we'd say it in UK English. You're going to be missing the main problems. I want to know what the problems are because I want to fix the problems. Yeah. So I actually never use on error resume next, and that allows me to understand the problems and to work through them. Math Magician, a big welcome. I know you're a member. Welcome, Harry. How are you? Do we cover Excel interactive dashboards? Harry, we have a series called Excel Dashboards for Beginners. This is free on the YouTube channel. If you join Members Monday, I will absolutely consider doing some sessions on dashboards. But take a look at the free sessions, Excel Dashboards for Beginners. Type that into YouTube. There's 3 videos. Take a look at those. And if you want to do more, get involved in Members Monday. Very happy to do some sessions for you. Okay, JB, could we control the exit of the loop by referring to a cell value? JB, yes, we could. I love it. And that is a great question. That shows you're thinking about the possibilities. I'm not going to demonstrate it now. We've already gone over time, but try to do it yourself. Okay. In fact, I'm just going to go in very quickly here and show you how you could use a range. Yeah. So you see the power of this. You see the flexibility. We could program the loop using values 1 to 10, put the static values in. We could use a variable here, or we could use a value from the spreadsheet. That gives you so much flexibility to get so much stuff done. JB, have a go at that yourself. Let me know how you get on. Good. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Jasmine says, what are you up to for New Year's? You know what, Jasmine? Like most people, not much. You know, I've been speaking to my wife, and she says, we're going to have a takeaway. Yeah. So that's as exciting as it's going to get, apparently. We're going to be having a takeaway on New Year's Eve. My wife's pregnant at the moment, so she has these very strong desires to eat certain foods on certain days. Okay, and she wants a Thai takeaway. She hasn't had a Thai takeaway for a while, so I'm going to go and find a Thai restaurant somewhere. We live out in the countryside, so I'm going to get in the car, find a Thai restaurant in a COVID compliant way, and we're going to go and find a Thai restaurant to have a takeaway. Right, I think that's everything, guys. So finally, final time, really, the £100 special offer. This is just giving you a taste, guys. It's just giving you a taste of what we do in Members Monday, but seriously, this is the best way to make progress with Excel, Excel VBA, de-stress your experience of using Excel, get involved with the magic of VBA. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.